today out at Chiefs Media, after Andy Reid finished telling us all that he wasn't quite sure about left tackle or Jaylen Watson or McCole Hardman or really anything having to do with Chiefs Texans. I don't know if you've seen the clips yet, Seth, but if you haven't, I'd encourage everyone to go get a little glimpse of the most important piece of film you're going to see today, a really impactful handoff. You know, I like it when Patrick Mahomes throws the football, but the best handoff I've ever seen was Andy Reid handing a football to Adam Teicher as he is about to hang up those cleats or maybe that typewriter, that reporter's notebook. I think there's a chance that he's still a typewriter guy after 32 years on the beat. And today he got a custom football with a panel on it and a cheeseburger bar for all of the media who was out there. In other news, I have unfortunately learned that they did finally disable my credential.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Just wanted a cheeseburger. Welcome to Only Weird Games. Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor with you. Nate Taylor set to join in progress here, hopefully sooner rather than later as we go. It's a busy time across the board, and the Chiefs have stayed nice and vague about some of the things that I alluded to in terms of the fact that Jaylen Watson. Justin Watson's fine, everybody. He's going to get his 80% of the snaps no matter what. Jaylen Watson is officially questionable for this game, but he has not been officially activated off of IR. McCole Hardman still on IR. He's doubtful. The good news, Seth, everybody else has been a full participant in practice this entire week, including Jaylen Watson. Again, he's just questionable because he's been on IR and he's ramping his way back up. The one and only Nate Taylor earlier today was saying that Jaylen Watson not only expected to play, but to start for the Chiefs. We'll get into some of the specifics as we go. I've been talking a lot in this introduction. That's dawning on me now as well. But it's just pretty nice that the Chiefs are as healthy as you could possibly ask them to be at this point in the season after a year that's been so decimated by so many of these injuries.
Absolutely. And not only are they as healthy as they've been all season, absent Rashee Rice, right? That's the big one. And that's obviously a huge loss. But when you lose someone that early in the season, you don't really think of them as part of the injury issues down the stretch. And so when you think about in terms of where the Chiefs were at, let's say week 5 or 6, where they're at now, they've got healthy Charles Omenihu. They've got healthy, well, let's go to week 9 because Jaylen Watson got hurt and everyone was like, holy crap, that's bad. Turned out it was bad. You've got Jaylen Watson looking like he's going to be able to play some snaps. You've got Charles Omenihu back. You've got Hollywood Brown back. You've got Chris Jones having plenty of time to nurse a calf injury that kept him out of the Steelers game. Patrick Mahomes, it feels like forever ago that I was saying I wouldn't play Patrick Mahomes against the Texans because I was that worried about that high ankle and everything else that was going on. Then, of course, he played really well, made me look stupid, which I'm fine with. And then they clinched, and no one's even really talking about the ankle anymore because 3 weeks for an ankle sprain with Wolverine blood, like Patrick Mahomes has, you assume that his ankle is better than anyone's ankle. Like, you know, of all his is the one ankle to rule them all at this point. You can't ask for much more. Health is such a big part of postseason runs, and I'm so excited to see them with everyone healthy. Meanwhile, the Texans have a few guys that are supposedly questionable. That linebacker that loves to hurt people, he's going to play.
Azeez Al-Shaair is questionable. Joe Mixon did not practice today. He is also questionable, and he's an old running back. So, you know, I don't know what the plan was for him there. And they have a couple other guys. Robert Woods, questionable, and a tight end who's on IR for them. That was their 4 names on that list.
Yep. And I just like referring. I can't pronounce that guy's last name, and I'm going to do it incorrectly and be offensive. So instead, I'm going to call him that linebacker who is very repentant for what he did, but also didn't do anything wrong. I'm just basing that off his apology statement after clearly doing something wrong. And will I eventually give him a break? Sure, of course. Eventually. But if there's one thing that really annoys me, it's when people issue apologies that aren't really apologies. That bothers me. If you don't think you did anything wrong, say, hey, I don't think I did anything wrong, but I will accept the punishment, and I just need to move forward and make sure that I don't put myself in that position anymore to even create the appearance of impropriety. Not, I regret what happened. I've always played this game cleaner than anyone in the world. Like, it's just like, come on, man, knock it off. But he's a really good player, really good linebacker, kind of he's the Nick Bolton of their defense, gets them lined up. Their run defense takes a clear step up when he's in the game. So he's going to play. I mean, it's the playoffs. This is like, if you can physically play, you're going to play. And so the Chiefs couldn't ask for a better health report card than they've got right now. I'm here for it.
We're back at full strength as well as Nate joins the fold. We're all here. We were always going to all get here for again, the most important time of the season. But with all that being said, Nate, I know you were talking earlier today about Watson's return. Again, it's not officially official yet by the letter of the league's law, but he's questionable. And in one of the places the Chiefs posted their injury report, he doesn't have the little parenthetical IR, but in another place. It's all. I tweeted earlier that it's like Schrodinger's activation. It has both happened and not yet happened. Are you expecting still for Jaylen Watson to start in this game? And if he's starting, are you expecting him to take a starter's workload, which for Chiefs corners is usually
100%? Such a good point. Yes, he's still expected to start. I know they have not gone through the roster activation mechanisms. But he was a full practice this week. He is going to be the starting cornerback unless something happens between now and Saturday. In terms of the starting workload, he's going to try. So the question is, can he get to like 65, 70% of snaps, which will give both
nickel sets.
Yes, which will give him and the rest of the secondary and Steve Spagnuolo a plethora of coverages that they can play, a couple, multiple personnel, especially nickel and dime, if that is necessary. So look, my guess is, seeing how the first quarter goes will be a good indication. Because, he hasn't played since middle of October, but yes, he is expected to be the starter. He was practicing with the ones all week. And this has been the plan since they've opened up the window. It's just now we know this is indeed the case. And as I wrote this morning in The Athletic, it's quite significant because both him and Charles Omenihu will be playing on critical downs with the season on the line. Yes, for the very first time this season.
For the first time in forever. You know what? I can't do this. I'm sorry.
I was going to see how long you were going to go. But
yeah.
That was a pretty good.
I saw that you guys were like, oh, we're going to let him do this. I was like, no one's going to interrupt me. And no.
Yeah.
But it's such a good feeling. I'm so excited. Here's hoping Jaylen Watson's first activity in a while goes better than his first activity in a while in that preseason game.
Yeah.
Where he had people like worried. I had a lot of people messaging me. We're like, is Jaylen Watson bad? I was like, we got a couple years of good tape. I think he just need to get his feet underneath him. Now, here's the thing. It's the playoffs. So maybe let him get those first few snaps underneath his feet, like without putting him on one-on-one on Nico Collins. Like, just let him guard a tight end. Just do something. Like, we're going to put you in man coverage on the running back. And he'd be like, what call is that? And Spag's like, I'll think of something. It's just, let's see you run around for a little bit first.
Playoff mode, baby. Let's stitch some of these things together. You wrote about this in the Chief from the North newsletter, Seth.
Yes.
That, again, assuming that Jaylen Watson was on his way back. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, but it feels a little more real now, and it feels like we have a little bit more to go off of. Jaylen Watson, 6'2". Joshua Williams is all arms. Trent McDuffie is not a big man by football playing standards, but he is the best slot defender in the NFL. And Nico Collins, most people don't know this, is actually 8 feet tall. So when you look at how Spags may manage that rotation, Collins doing his power slot stuff, and then obviously the Chiefs having some size on the boundaries. I'm giving you Steve Spagnuolo's phone number here. You got a couple of minutes to talk to him before he totally finalizes the game plan. What are you doing to slow down Nico Collins? And am I right in assuming that you are defending the Texans passing game by starting with Nico Collins?
Absolutely. So, hey, Spags, we're defending the Texans passing game by starting and basically ending with Nico Collins, other than various leaks and rollout type actions to the flat to tight ends and running backs. Spags, for the love of God, please, it hurts my soul. I can't think of a time, just on a side note, that there's been some kind of rollout to the flat to a tight end that chipped to start off where that dude was not wide open. I can't remember a time. I don't know why some team hasn't built the entire plane out of it against the Chiefs, because every time they run it, there is no one within 10 yards of the guy. And it makes me crazy every time it happens. I assume there's schematic reasons you can't run it every play, but I'd love to see someone try. Just like, we're going to run this exact look, pull an Andy Reid, run it from different formations, and just see if they can defend it. I don't know if they can. Please don't do that. Anyway.
We got to let them get one easy one.
Yeah.
Then we release the hounds.
Then we release the hounds. And so if I'm Spags, when they move Nico Collins to the slot, I am putting Trent McDuffie there. And the reason for that is, though McDuffie's small, he does play incredibly physical. And Collins, for as good a player he is, and he's a great player. He's excellent, probably a top 15 receiver, which is really, really good in the NFL. That's an unbelievable player. However, unlike, say, Courtland Sutton, he is not a contested ball guy despite his size. He can do it, but that's not his major game. He's not like a T. Higgins type with that. He's a long and physical separation guy. And so if he's going to be in the slot, I think McDuffie can defend him there just fine. And then also what I'm going to do is, hey, pre-snap when Collins is there, you know what they love to run? They love to run in breakers. They love to run digs. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you, hey, you know Jaden Hicks, who's also a giant human? Why don't you just have him or Brian Cook or Justin Reed or some other jerk who loves to hit and loves to do mean things to quarterbacks, creep down, show too high right before the snap, and then rotate, probably Reed, because he loves doing this with Reed, then rotate him at the last moment into a robber roll and have him creep up towards that dig and just take that ball right out of the air. That's what I would do. Just don't give him the middle of the field. And you've got someone down the field in case, they extend the route to a downfield post type thing. This is the way. They had so much success with in-breaking routes. I wrote about that actually a little bit, I think, on the Chief of Northeast. I think, as though I wouldn't be the one to know.
You did.
Oh, did I? Great. Yes. I would just love to see them try to take away that and say, we dare you to do something else, anything else to try to beat us. Because one thing that's worth noting, for all the talk about Nico Collins, the real reason the Texans won that game was their defense. And if you can just take away those 2 or 3 big plays from Nico Collins, I don't know what the Texans have outside of a performance that looks very different than what they showed most of this season, including against the Chargers, honestly. The offense just has not looked good, and that's how I would run things if I were Spags. I would let McDuffie be in the slot as often as possible to try to take away those middle of the field looks, because he also, in addition, everyone hears slot defender and they think man coverage on a slot receiver. You know what else McDuffie is great at? Probably better than man coverage is the way he defends in zone is freakish, and he can shut down the middle of the field. And then in the meantime, every now and then when they run some condensed looks, it's like, hey, Trent, I'm going to just have you run that way at CJ Stroud. And you know what? We're also going to creep up Chamari Conner to the other side. We're going to blitz both guys from the slot because I'm Spags and I'm insane and it's the playoffs. And I remember the last time he did that, was the playoffs. I can't remember the last time I saw him blitz from both like slot sides with like a safety in the corner. I gasped when he did that last year in the playoffs. It was so great. I think it was Nate Tice did a series of video clips on it about, are you sure you want to run condensed looks against Spags?
Mhm.
Then it was another one with that double blitz. He was like, are you really sure? And it reminded me of our own Nate Taylor in the terms of, are you really sure you want to, are you sure you want to condense everyone in so Spags can send everyone? That was a really long answer. I'm really excited for the playoffs. I'm going to shut up now.
The best part of that is, when it's condensed, you're giving my guy a shorter route to the quarterback, right? You know this. And so that's always the fun part of it. I think one clear difference that needs to be in CJ Stroud's mind, which should be on the mind of the Chiefs, is he's gonna have to use his legs more than he did in the first matchup. Whether that is counteracting the blitz or creating more time to extend plays for somebody to get open that's not named perhaps Nico Collins. Now the Chiefs did a really good job of containing him in the pocket, not letting him really get outside of it. Yes, I rewatched the game. Yes, I know George Karlaftis was held. Yes, before the pass was thrown to, yes, Dalton Schultz, who, yes, pushed Trent McDuffie into another area code. Yes, I'm aware. But that was his one play outside of the deep throw to Tank Dell. Unfortunately, we all know that that's the play that the injury occurred. Those are the plays that I think that you have to be fearful of. That's not in structure. That's not by design necessarily. If you do have top of the line man coverage from Joshua Williams, Jaylen Watson, and Trent McDuffie, which gives you obviously the flexibility to be a little more disguise heavy and obviously be blitz happy. I know everybody says
everything you're saying. Nate,
Thank
say
you.
it slower, but with your calves showing.
Okay.
Seth is thinking some sinful thoughts right now.
Now I know there are smart people that are about to say the same thing I'm about to say. And we know that there's enough evidence, Josh, that they should have been stopped saying it in 2019. You cannot give the ball to Joe Mixon 30 times. It's not feasible, okay? Joe Mixon is a good running back. No one's disputing that.
Yeah.
Time of possession does not matter, okay? Getting 4 yards of carry doesn't matter if we think the Chiefs offense is going to be as explosive, if not more explosive, than what we saw on Christmas Day. Don't hand the ball to this man 30 times, okay? It has to be timely runs that are efficient, and you must make the Chiefs pay in the red zone with your running back. Don't hand the ball to this man 30 times. That's a fool's gold game plan.
Especially when you're bad at run blocking, which they have been. And the thing is, Mixon he's kind of had to make chicken salad out of chicken poo with some of the run blocking that they've had. And but here's all I know. Bobby Slowick, since we're giving out advice, Bobby, maybe don't run like 7 wide receiver screens.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't.
Like, why would you do that? I rewatched the game too, and I was like, Nate, you just rewatched. Did any of them work? Like,
not single one gained more than 5 yards. Not a single one. In fact, there are
most of them were at the line or a loss.
Just as many negative plays. Not negative EPA, kids. Negative yards on quick, screens. I wonder when I rewatched the game, and I've watched it 3 times now because I'm a maniac. I wonder if it was some pre-snap checks that, like, hey, based on the look, if you got it, we'll give you the authority, we'll give you the freedom to make that check at the line of scrimmage. Nah, baby. Nah, just run the play.
I think it's like, oh no, we've got numbers. We've got a blocker in front of Trent McDuffie. And it's like, have you not watched? And like, same with Josh Williams, like, this is what they do. Watson's the same thing.
Same with Seth. Keep going through the Chiefs defensive backfield. You're going to say 8 names.
All of them tackle extremely well. That's one of their game was interesting to rewatch because I don't want. I've been telling Chiefs fans not to be overconfident because you never know any given Saturday
Exactly.
and all that.
Yes.
But I've also like the number of people because people want to write about interesting things and write about whatever. But there's a lot of like, this isn't the same Texans defense, and I'm like, well, it was like 3.5 weeks ago. People like, let's not. It wasn't 2022. It's all the same guys with one linebacker. Which yes, that's important. But like, oh, that pass rush is going to decimate them. Will it? Like maybe. I don't know. But it's an interesting thing. I really want them to throw a bunch of wide receiver screens again. It would just make me laugh during the game. It's like, Bobby, what are you doing? Like, why?
They threw one. They threw one when no one had an angle at Justin Reed in the red zone, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, okay,
if they do this again, we're going to need some sort of editing of this segment of this show. Like over Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar, just like yelling, "No, like, don't!" And we're on the other side of this particular matchup in terms of the team that we cover and rooting interests and whatnot. It's really bizarre that it held throughout that whole game, and I wonder if the complete destruction of the screen game is going to be enough for the Texans to go like, okay, well, we didn't make the call mid game that we should have made to stop trying this. So we're just definitely, though, we've had the time to review the film now. We're not going to get stuck doing that in this game. So let me ask you both. I think we'll just end up doing Chiefs defense in the front half and Chiefs offense in the back half of today's show, by and large. With all of that being said, and we can get more into the Spags versus Stroud games, although we've already covered a good number of those, where does the Houston offense have a matchup? Where do they have something schematically that gives you any concern whatsoever? Because we were texting about this last Saturday that like, we can't let the second half, or we can't let the fact that the Texans won this game erase what we saw in the first half of this offense, still looking like an offense with a lot of problems. If the Texans score 30 points on Saturday, what happened?
I would say they'll probably. You always have to remember this. There's usually an injury that you don't foresee that can complicate things. So that probably happened. CJ played great and probably didn't turn the ball over. Maybe the Chiefs turned the ball over twice or more. And when the Texans were in the red zone, they were excellent. I think those are the more standard ways I can see this game going differently than like what most Chiefs fans or analysts think. It doesn't have to be Nico Collins. I understand that they have Robert Woods, they have Dalton Schultz, they have Joe Mixon. They're gonna have to find ways to beat the blitz that doesn't involve jailbreak screens, traditional screens, and slants. Because the 49ers tried slants in the Super Bowl last year to beat the blitz, and it didn't work. So I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's probably what it's going to take to beat the blitz when you know the blitz is coming, especially when you're not. And this is something that we always have to remember. Like, we just watched the team play in its home environment. Didn't play well to start the game, but once they got in rhythm, once they got some confidence, once the crowd got involved, hey, they played better. They did what they were supposed to do as professionals. This is not going to be in Houston. This is not going to be indoors. This is not going to be in warm weather. This is not going to be something where, like, hey, I'm sure it was loud on December 15th. It will likely be louder. So you're going to have to do silent count. Everybody's going to have to be very in tuned, especially on offense, to be as effective as what is probably necessary for the Texans to pull off an upset.
Right. From my perspective, I would think if barring injury or something really weird like that, I would say for the Texans to put up 30, you'd need an excellent game from Stroud. I mean, excellent. It would be the Chiefs not being able to get pressure with 4, which would be surprising given the state of the Texans offensive line. But stranger things have happened, right? Occasionally. And And this is the thing, there's some ands here because Spags in the playoffs is tough, and the Chiefs on paper are just more talented. Like with everyone healthy, they've got a fair amount of talent on the defensive side of the ball.
Can you hold Chris Jones every snap? I mean,
yeah.
every snap. I mean,
you got to try.
Take a playbook out of what the Bengals used to do. Hey, call it in the first quarter. You cannot call it every down. So guess what? We're gonna play action and hold this man with 4 hands, okay, 4 of them, and hope nobody else beats us on one-on-ones.
And so I think, you do that, you get away with it. The Chiefs don't get a ton of pressure with 4, and then they manage their protections better against Spags stuff than they have traditionally, and the Chiefs struggle to defend the middle of the field. That is one area, the middle of the field, where at times the Chiefs have been vulnerable. They kind of live and die at times on how Bolton and Trank will play, how Reed, in particular Justin Reed, plays, and that would be their path to 30. Stroud plays really well. Offensive line manages to hold up to where Spags feels the need to blitz, and their protections hold up well against it, and they pick on the middle of the field. Collins getting loose with physicality against McDuffie a few times. No one comes down, and he's able to make big plays out of it. That's where I would think. I do think, for them to put up 30, I think you're talking at least 150 receiving yards for Nico Collins. I don't think it happens any other way. Barring something
if that's
crazy.
on pace at halftime and Trent McDuffie isn't following Nico Collins, I would change that then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that he can't end up with 150 yards on one play.
Right. And that's really Spags is just tough, man. I mean, he adjusts throughout games.
Mm-hmm.
We've watched them, with the Bills last year. They were running all over the Chiefs for a while, and then slowly as the game moved along, the clamps started to get put on it. I mean, it's just he adjusts so well. His individualized game plans are so good. And the Texans, if they had Tank Dell and or Stephon Diggs, I think it changes the dynamic quite a bit. It's just tough with the Chiefs as healthy as they are. But there's a path there, but involves CJ Stroud playing really well, their protections holding up, and picking on the middle of the field.
And to that point, and on some level to the Texans, like, to their credit, in a way they can never cash out here, they had Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and their splashiest move of the offseason was to add another weapon. And now they're back down to Nico Collins and Robert Woods, and no longer Deontay Johnson, who is back technically with the Ravens, by the way. He cannot play in the playoffs, but if you're wondering how that pathway has gone, it's gone quite poorly.
And on a side note, I don't expect, we talk about McDuffie a lot. We talk about individual matchups. I expect Spags to they play quite a bit of man coverage. Every defense in the league plays zone half the time, at least. Because it's the NFL. No one has 3 corners. Well, the Chiefs did last year that can run with receivers. That's why they were so good. It's like, well, we'll just play man constantly, and everyone's like, I don't know what to do about that because they communicate so well, and they're not running into each other when we run mesh. What's happening? It was so fun to watch. But I do think you're going to see quite a bit of zone. I think you're going to see some zone blitz stuff. I think you're going to see Spags stacking the line of scrimmage and showing Stroud some weird stuff and saying, hey, kid, I've seen you struggle. Can you do it? And if he does, the Texans will be able to move the ball. If he doesn't, that's going to be tough.
Nate, I don't have an answer in mind to this, so the answer may just be no. Was there anything from Spags yesterday? Everything sped up by a day because they're playing on Saturday. Anything from Spags yesterday that kind of caught your ear? Nate is shaking his head.
Look,
playoff mode.
Like, I think the only coach that felt comfortable being honest, and even then I thought he was lying to us because, playoffs, was Dave Togue.
100%.
Who said, no, he had a great day in practice. And I'm like,
Dave Togue said a lot of words about Harrison Butker. I'm not sure any of them were true, but he did.
I asked you about his range. Like, can he go to like 60, or do you have to start thinking 50 and inward? No, he had a great day. Had a great day of practice. He's not changing how he lands. Okay, coach. Okay. So no, nothing from Spags came out. He hedged, which leads us to probably the next topic. he hedged on, well, he's not going to be Trent McDuffie every time on Nico Collins. I mean, they're smart. They move him around, which I'm like, you're smart too, coach. But
Yeah.
let's not forget that. Okay. I mean, thank you. Tongue in cheek. I enjoy it. It's not going to be Trent McDuffie on Nico Collins every play, like L'Jarius Sneed last year. Oh, okay, coach. And then obviously today,
I've never been more sure it's going to be Trent McDuffie every play.
Right. It's just like, okay, sure. So
before we go flip to the offensive side, and I will
Yes.
let you explain how Andy Reid went through all of that. I'll take our break in the middle. Since you mentioned his name, let's make our halftime here about special teams. Where are you guys at on Harrison Butker right now? Because also, as I have started doing the little parade of radio hits that begin around playoff time, I hear a lot about people being, I think understandably, concerned about Harrison Butker. He's not been the same guy post meniscus surgery in season and all. Where do you feel confident? Where do you feel concerned? Nate, you take it first because you were just there for Tobe talking about all of that.
Yes.
And then I'm curious about where the vibes land for Seth, because I don't think you did any kicker film. I think he was the only guy you didn't mention in Tuesday's
Your
story.
article.
But go ahead, Nate.
I'm concerned, which means you should be concerned, which means any field goal 50 and beyond will have a cloud of mystery, just because we haven't seen it in a while. On Wednesday, yesterday, they did kick in the stadium. That was something that Dave Tobe clearly said, like, hey, we have the advantage of kicking in those conditions, getting acclimated to them more than just 2 hours before the game, like the Texans will have. He missed some kicks in practice, which is not unusual, but it is noteworthy. And so they, from the vantage point that we saw early, they didn't kick the ball a ton. But I don't know if you can say reliably until we see it on Saturday. I'm not sure you can say reliably, oh yeah, this is a 58-yarder into half, put 3 on the board. I don't know when that concern is going to go away until he actually does it. And that's not necessarily fair to Harrison, but the Chiefs are trying very much to stay calm about it while we all have eyes. And so, much like any core 9 player, you expect them to step up when the call is made. And so there will be a moment where you could go up 2 scores, or you could put the game further, you could create further distance between you and the Texans, or there could be a momentum swing where, hey, we got a turnover, we got to convert it into some points. Help us out, Harrison. And I expect the core 9 member to, make you nervous, but he's still capable of further proving to you yet again why he's a core 9 member. And don't ever forget, kids, he's a core 9 member without an agent. He handled this contract himself after that offseason, okay? So
I wish he was Chris Jones's agent.
That deal may have gotten done a little bit sooner, which could have helped Trey Smith. Yes.
For me, I would say we've seen how I didn't realize how much of a boon it was having Butker when he's at 100% at his best until we had a few games where, suddenly 50-yard field goals weren't an automatic, and we saw some punts that made me a little crazy. Like, I do think if you're Andy Reid and you think 50 plus is questionable, then to me, 4th and anything 5 or shorter in that part of the field, I'm going for it. Because the 20 to 30 yards field position, who cares? I don't care. And I am actually going to turn off the public chat because I can't argue with people about this today.
No,
20 or 30 yards of field position is not more important than a possession.
Excuse
it's
me,
just not.
I just got some breaking news from Kenneth Young.
Yes.
Apparently, Harrison Butker has 3 agents: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's why I
really
started
good.
laughing.
That's really good. I thought you were about to start trolling me. So
No.
here's for me. it does take away having the best kicker in the league, someone who is, especially on long kicks. I remember even when Butker was going through it a little bit with like extra points, he'd line up for like a 59-yarder, and I was like, oh, that's
no
cool.
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yep.
And it was especially like end of half, end of games. Now, we haven't seen him during this stretch have to kick a game winner. I'm still pretty confident in that. We know the moment's not too big for him there. And so, I mean, if he's physically able to do it, I think that's going to be okay. But you're going to have a few goofy moments where it could be a 55-yard field goal and it's 4th and 3 and Andy's going to punt and I'm going to freak out. But hopefully they're up by 16 at that point, so no one cares. So it worries me a little because in the playoffs, the margin for error shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks because the teams get better and better and better. And losing a point here and there or 3 points here and there, that can matter a lot. And
I'm about to tell you a game where it mattered a lot.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, that's just a good old-fashioned tease. Nate pays off the tease after the break.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
All right, Nate, it feels like you got a couple of dots to connect for us here, and I wonder if it might have a little something to do with the Chiefs left tackle situation.
You know, Josh, I do. And thank you for letting that tease get a chance to marinate for a couple seconds. Now, I know that Tucker was maybe born when this game occurred.
Oh, don't do this.
So this is a history portion, ladies. Perhaps maybe a history lesson, gentlemen. Now I did this last night, and then I finished it this morning. Okay, this is my homework for this show. I'm only going to talk about this game for this show because, to Seth's point, the margin of error is so freaking slim. And let me tell you, there has not been a moment in Chiefs postseason history since this game that is reminiscent of the game we're about to watch. Now, it's not the same position, but it carries similar weight. Let me take you back to a little game I like to call the AFC Divisional round in Arrowhead Stadium on January 4th, because, you know, the schedule was a lot shorter back then, 1998. The Chiefs, because of Pete Stoyanovich, a game I referenced earlier this season after Leo Chenal's block, told you, based on that margin of error, that margin of the ball going over the uprights, the Chiefs got to host the Denver Broncos in the 1997 divisional round with a chance at kickoff to host the AFC Championship, given that the Pittsburgh Steelers did not have a better record than either team, although they were the division winner. A little different structure back then, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I watched NBC's coverage because back then they had the AFC package. And Jim Gray, in the pregame interview, and the run-up to kickoff, asked Marty Schottenheimer, who's your quarterback? And Marty Schottenheimer, God bless his soul, said, Elvis Grbac is our quarterback, and he's our quarterback for the duration. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest quarterback controversy in Kansas City Chiefs history happened in 1997 because they chose to play Elvis Grbac coming off a collarbone injury, a shoulders, when you got to throw the ball, a collarbone injury in week 17 to prepare him for the bye week and then the divisional round instead of sticking with hot hand Rich Gannon, who won 5 of the 6 starts in replace of Elvis Grbac. I know this because NBC said it about 20 times during the broadcast, okay?
Seth, why did you try to hold your breath so hard you almost passed out?
Because I don't know another way to make him stop, Josh.
He wasn't going to stop for your death
I'm
either.
not
Back to
stopping
Nate.
for you. We have to understand the lessons so that we can move forward in a better future for our kids, for our families, for future generations, okay? Now, okay, coach, you've made the decision. Andre Rison has to be freaking Jerry Rice today. And you know what? Jerry Rice and Andre Rison played amazing on that day, okay? Andre Rison, incredible. Tony Gonzalez, a rookie, played incredible. Rich Gannon looked pissed on the sideline. Understandably so. Okay, coach, that means for these last 2 weeks, Elvis Gerback been killing it in practice, right? I mean, been slinging that thing, delivering the pill to everybody to get medicine. Guys, when I tell you on a down-to-down snap, this man didn't have it for an entire half. And you know how many points the Chiefs scored in that first half, Seth? You know how many points the Chiefs scored against a pretty Denver Broncos team that was beat up the previous week because they
Dude,
had
I stopped listening like 5 minutes ago.
Huh?
Dude, I stopped listening like 5 minutes ago. I just want to talk the Chiefs offense versus the Texans defense.
The Chiefs scored goose eggs, kids, goose eggs, all right? They scored 0 points in the first half because it took a guy coming off an injury who played, a little bit in this regular season finale to get up to speed of playoff physical football against a division opponent who knew them, by the way. So it's not like you have any secrets. You've played them twice already. And they get a turnover or they get a botch punt. They're in the red zone, or basically in the red zone, and Pete Stoyanovich could give the Chiefs a 3-0 lead, which back in the 1997 playoffs, kids, was massive. There is a phantom holding call on said field goal. It pushes the field goal 10 yards back. Guess what Pete Stoyanovich does, kids? He hits the upright. They don't score any points. And guess what the Denver Broncos do on the very next drive? Go right down the field, score a touchdown. They never had the lead. The Chiefs never had the lead because the margin of error is this slim. And when you bring a guy off injury, and I know this is related to Jaylen Watson to a degree as well, it might take a while to get up to speed. Now, Elvis Gerback had a massively impressive third quarter. I don't know what they did at halftime, but it's like he woke up, realized the season was on the line, and played his ass off. And then the coaching staff completely mismanaged the entire fourth quarter to, in again, a very Alex Smith Shakespearean manner, doom the quarterback who's trying to come off of injury to support you by taking timeout after timeout after. Why don't you have any timeouts? So they lost by 4.
So what I learned from that, just from my notes here, first of all, I think the big takeaway is that we have to start connecting slinging the pill to everybody getting medicine. I think that is new parlance that should apply to quarterbacks. Oh,
Yes.
man, he was Patrick Mahomes out there just dishing out the meds. The pharmacist, Patrick Mahomes. I like slinging the pill and evolving that way. And then I have Joe Tooney as Rich Gannon, DJ Humphries as Elvis Gerbach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Yes. And Mike Caliendo's just Lake Dawson. I'm open. I can't get the ball.
Now, Seth, I lost the plot a little bit. Would you rather have Elvis Gerbach or Rich Gannon at left tackle?
I mean,
Current day.
Gannon's more athletic, but Gerbach's a bigger dude.
I'll look it up.
So
Yes.
We
were
thinking
treating
probably
we were treating big, stonky white boys who could throw the ball like they were diamonds, baby.
Are we back in 2025?
Yes.
Yeah, because it would be 59-year-old Rich Gannon or however old Elvis Gerbach is.
Now look, Rich Gannon had better statistics.
Nate
had better feel in the pocket. Could extend the play a little bit better than Elvis Gerbach. Not to say Elvis Gerbach wasn't good. Again, had an incredible third quarter, and the entire coaching staff mismanaged the fourth quarter. I cannot trust you enough to say that Danon Hughes, dropped 2 passes. The coaching staff mismanaged the game. Elvis, why are we taking timeouts when we have the momentum in the red zone? We need those timeouts. And Pete Stoyanovich does not get a chance because he blew his chance in the first half. All of this is to say, coaches are trained and conditioned to be loyal. And that's why it is so masterful and so gutsy that Bill Belichick looked at the highest paid quarterback in the league at the time, just merely 5 years later, and said, sit your ass down. Okay, not going to do it. Tom Brady's our quarterback. I have to go with what's working today. Sure, we all have plans. Andy Reid is known for his loyalty. Andy Reid is known for his plan. Andy Reid understands that the more veteran guy with more experience in the playoffs is DJ Humphrey.
Oh my God.
But we know Rich Gannon can ball. We've seen it. I don't know.
Wait, so is DJ Humphries Rich Gannon and Elvis Gerbach?
DJ Humphries is Elvis Gerbach, and I wonder if DJ Humphries starts on Saturday's game, which I think is a strong possibility because Andy Reid, much like any coach, they choose to be loyal to their guys. Now, you can say, well, DJ Humphrey wasn't here the whole year. Yes, but we signed you for literally this specific game. We brought you here for literally this moment. So loyalty can be handed out. How quickly will it take DJ Humphries to get up to speed in a manner that he can be at his most effective best, knowing that it took Elvis Gerbach an entire half, and then by then it's too late.
So who's going to play left tackle, do you think?
So here's where I land on all of it. It's the same place I've been landing. I assume it'll probably be Humphries. I think the real reason, more so than anything else, is because I think he wants Joe Thuney at left guard and have that spot massively upgraded. Thank you in the chat for Ethan Driscoll for left tackle. Nick, you got to shift us on the rundown to who's playing left tackle.
I don't think there was it bounced around.
There was not. No.
I don't think there's a sell for that one. We can go to playoff Trav or final thoughts or back to welcome, but I do not think that
so. In terms of left tackle, I have nothing new to add to the analysis.
Nick, can you go ahead and make one that says Elvis Gerbach versus Rich Gannon? Can you make one of those real quick?
I would just say the biggest thing is that if Reid thinks that Humphries can be adequate, he'll play Humphries at left tackle. So that way he can have elite play at left guard instead of below average play at left guard. That's what he'll do. Whether or not he's right, we'll see. Whether or not that compares remotely to playing quarterback in the friggin' 90s, I can't say whether or not that.
It's about the margins, Seth. It's about the margins. And again, I don't think we've had
No, I wasn't asking. I wasn't asking a question.
I don't think people realize the Joe Thuney or DJ Humphries is the nearest thing we have to would you start Rich Gannon or would you go back to old thing Elvis Gerbach?
I personally...
You only play one quarterback. Like, Joe Thuney's going to start on Saturday.
But what spot is he going to be on? Is he going to guard Daniil Hunter? Is he going to block
Did
Will
the Chiefs...
Anderson?
So that's where, in terms of left tackle, my guess is it'll be Humphries. Wouldn't shock me if it was Thuney and they went with Caliendo at left guard, and then we're going to be asking all the same questions the next week too, which is hilarious to me. For me, the one underrated storyline here that our colleague and friend, except he's not Josh's friend, but he's all the rest of our friends, Ken Swanson, he pointed out that the Texans are the first team to see Joe Thuney at left tackle for the second time, having an opportunity to look at some tape, see what works, see what doesn't. And so it'll be interesting to see whether or not Reid factors that in. I mean, he's said everything he's going to say on the topic. Humphries looked a lot more comfortable in Week 18 than he'd looked previously. He's now had another.
Elvis Gerbach.
He's now had another 3 weeks to acclimate.
That's what they said about Elvis Gerbach.
It'll be interesting to see what they do from here on out. I too agree with Nate that the Chiefs, rather than letting Hollywood Brown play, should have continued to give Justin Watson all the snaps. And so, because, it's just like Elvis Gerbach, really, in that you.
What I don't understand is, hey, Elvis, you've been killing it with Andre Rison. How are you not throwing the ball to this man on every down in the fourth quarter? Did he disappear? I don't care if they doubled him. Because, back in the 90s, they didn't show you all 22 all the time. So it's hard to see what the coverage was. But, you throwing the ball to young Danon Hughes and
Nate?
Ricky Layton.
Nate, I'm setting a boundary.
Hey, Tony Gonzalez is over there. Let's
I
use
love you.
him.
We have got to talk about the 2025 playoffs now, Nate. I'm setting
We've
a boundary.
talked about Danon Hughes more than we've talked about any Chiefs wide receiver currently playing on this playoff team, Nate.
And because the most important matchup in this game is the Chiefs offense versus the Texans defense.
That's pretty funny for Nick saying they had all 22 in the 90s. That's pretty funny. Okay, go ahead, Seth.
The Texans defense is more equipped to hang with the Chiefs offense or even get the better of the Chiefs offense than vice versa. And so that's the more interesting of the two matchups. There was a good article on The Ringer. Steven Ruiz, he wrote a nice piece on thinking that he, in my opinion, he went a little overboard with. He's like, the Texans might be the best situated team to stop the Chiefs. Like, okay, easy. Like,
I'm a click. Don't worry, I'm a click.
Yeah, no. He
did
a great job.
Too much sauce on it. I'm a click,
yeah.
Steven.
Get pressure with how do you give the Chiefs some trouble with Mahomes at quarterback? It's like any other great quarterback. Get pressure with 4. You don't have to blitz, and you play solid man and or zone with a good mix of disguised coverages behind it. That's how you do it. The Texans are built to maybe do just that. I'm interested because the Chiefs, they got rid of the ball in 2.2 seconds or something against the Texans in the first matchup. So if you're the Texans, my assumption is you attack the line of scrimmage, you force the Chiefs, you kind of go with the Raiders 2023 Christmas Day game plan. Attack the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
Attack the receivers at the line. Play press man. Force them to beat you over the top. Force them to win one-on-one against good corners. Show that you can do it. Play either good, solid zone coverages that you've disguised. Because if Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes know you're playing zone, they're gonna dice you up.
Yep.
But if you disguise it well, that's your best bet. And so the thing for me is, the Chiefs know that, and this, again, you start to Princess Bride this, you know what I mean? The Chiefs know that they're going to do that. So then the Chiefs will try to take shots over the top. But the Texans know that the Chiefs know that the Texans know that the Chiefs know. So who knows? I just know that if I were the Chiefs, I would take a couple of shots over the top early just to see. Because if you hit, if you miss, fine, you go with your normal stuff. But if you hit, now you've changed the entire dynamic of the game. You actually have significantly more to gain than you do to lose by hitting a downfield shot early, particularly to Brown or Worthy.
And to that point, Seth, those guys will have as fresh of legs as you could have this time of the year.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you're playing through as many nicks and bruises as the secondary we can assume from the Texans. I love that idea. Whether it's play action or what sometimes what the Chiefs do is, if Patrick's, instead of a traditional drop back, he'll drop back and go to the left, or he'll drop back and go back to the right to give different, angles for the defensive lineman to create more time for Worthy or for Hollywood or for Justin Watson to get a little one-on-one action down that sideline, for a 40-yard gain, whether it's a nice fade or the old trusted corner route.
I've given my feel on all the pass catchers all having this kind of remarkably high ceiling. And we talked about that on Tuesday. So if you want more on all of that, you can check that out. And Seth again has written about a whole bunch of these things we've talked about in the newsletter. Of course, Nate stuff over on The Athletic. Let's go specific to the 35-year-old, who I will say, as I think this show's holdout on Travis Kelce has one more run and then it's ball game. Him talking about that with Stephen A. Smith was a little surprising. Mm-hmm. Some of the phrasing, some of the terminology behind all of that made me at least, obviously I've considered it the entire time, but I am a whole lot closer to 50-50 now. And maybe I'm 60-40 one last ride. I don't know. And I think the way the season ends very well could still
we'll
impact
play
all
a
that,
massive
so.
We'll play a massive role in this. Yes.
If you told me right now that we are guaranteed to either see a 3-peat or another year with Travis Kelce, I would just try to see the silver lining of knowing we're going to get one very, very good thing, even if the 3-peat means the end for Kelce or whatever it is. So all of that aside, what about these next 1 game, 2 games, 3 games of playoff Trav? Nate, we haven't heard from him at media. He's been on several shows this week. I don't know if you've gotten anything from inside the facilities. And then, Seth, I'd like you to dig into your 6th of 5 things in the most recent Chief in the North newsletter story, because you're sick.
Look, I think Travis will be as utilized and perhaps as weaponized as any game we've seen this season, whether he gets the ball or not. We saw how much he set the tone last year against the Dolphins, which opened up things for Rashee Rice, which obviously established the Kelsey, which obviously let Pacheco get into rhythm. They've done a masterful job guiding Kelsey through this season to where he hasn't had the same amount of piling, sort of nagging injuries as he had a year ago. Now, there are some designs that are going to be based on tape that the Texans have clearly dissected, and that will not matter because he will move a different way than you've seen so far, and that will lead to either the Chiefs getting deep into Houston's territory or perhaps somewhere in the red zone that leads to a touchdown. You just have to know that based on their experience together, their connection with one another, Patrick and Travis are going to have specialty plays that allow themselves to have some pretty memorable moments. And you can't double Kelsey without giving up something else.
Right.
And so that should be comforting to Patrick, even if he will start the game probably seeing how the Texans identify Kelsey on certain formations, certain looks, certain motions, and then that may build everything else from there. But I still get the sense that the game plan will probably start with Kelsey, and then what information you get from those first 15 plays will sort of determine how the rest of the game plan goes.
Yep. From my perspective on this, last year's playoffs were unbelievable. 37 targets in 4 games. He caught 32 of them. He averaged 9.6 yards per target, not per catch, per target on high volume. He was 88.7 yards per game, which was right up there with his best career highs. Here's the thing that Travis Kelce's quote-unquote decline became a big storyline last year. He didn't play the first week. He was clearly playing banged up after that for a while.
Yep.
Something worth noting, okay? In 2023, he averaged 8.1 yards per target. Down from his career average, but not by a ton. Since Mahomes, yards per target, Kelce was 8.9 yards per 9.0 yards, 9.8. Holy crap. Across a whole season is unbelievable. 8.4, 8.8, 8.1. This year, Travis Kelce's yards per target are 6.2.
Mm-hmm.
An incredible drop-off. He went from last year, he averaged, it was 65.5 yards a game. He missed 2 games. That's why he didn't hit 1,000 yards. This year, he averaged 51 yards, 51.5 yards per game. By far the lowest he averaged since 2015, and
Correct.
He did that in 2015 on 30 fewer total targets.
Josh?
Here's the deal.
Josh, do those stats matter to Travis Kelce?
I don't know. I want to know what Seth's deal is. I have another stat to chase that with.
Okay.
So this is the year that it actually started to happen. And on film, Kelsey does not separate as well as he was last year. He doesn't separate quite as well from man. He can still does it at a high level, but it's no longer automatic. That's just how it is. Father time, undefeated, etc. A big part of this, though, the yards per target, and this is a little running theory I have. It's the depth of target issue. He just isn't a downfield threat as frequently. But the bigger part of it is this year, and I think this will change in the playoffs, when Travis Kelce catches the ball, that man is not breaking tackles. That's
or he's lateraling it to Samaje Perine.
Yeah, he's just like, nope, I don't want any of this. I'm 35. Holy crap, that hurts. Here's the deal. Kelsey was still very, 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 very good this year. There's a difference between very, 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 very good and the greatest to ever do it. But, and this is the but, last year in the playoffs came around and he had a higher burden on him in last year's playoffs.
Correct.
So statistically, we might not see that same burst. But I would note, and I wrote about this a little bit, there was a 4 or 5 game stretch in the middle of this season where they said, Travis, outside of a pretty or relatively comfortable win against the Niners, Travis, we need you to be our wide receiver 1 against the Chargers, against the Saints, against the Raiders, against the Bucks, against the Broncos. We need you to be the guy. And you know what he did during those games? He was the guy. And he did it when he had to. I also think the other thing you're going to see here is him doing a little more for yards after catch. All the statistical stuff, is just to be representative of, yes, this year it's started. Does that mean I don't think he can crank it up for another run and be unbelievable in the playoffs? He did it last year. I think he'll do it again this year, because one of the biggest differences you saw last year once the playoffs came, when he was finally rested, when he was whatever, is suddenly he wasn't going down on that first hit anymore. And whereas now during the season, you'd see him just go down. He did not break tackles this season, just didn't do it.
And why was
Watch
that?
the end of the Super Bowl last year, that final drive where they throw that little inside screen to him, and he breaks like 2 tackles and fights the entire 49ers defense for every yard, tooth and nail. I think that's what you're going to see in terms of the playoffs. And the reason I gave all this context for it, because I know I went long chatting about it, but enjoy it, because I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see playoff Trav. And I think if and when it leads to a three-peat, if I were him, I'd consider it. The idea of, okay, what more do you have to prove? And so enjoy it.
Here's my perhaps hope for 2025, and one of the reasons that I would like to strongly double down on playoff Trav re-emerging. Yes, he played more snaps this year than he had played in any season since his age 30 season. In 2019, he played more snaps. Just total snap totals. We're thinking about like how often you're on the field, how often you're blocking somebody, how often you're getting hit, all of that, okay? Percentages fluctuate because games fluctuate. He played 940 regular season snaps this year. Not only is that the most since he played 971 in 2019, it's the third most ever. He's 35. He played the third most snaps he's ever played in a single season. He had 993 in 2018, 971 in 2019, and then he was under 900, over 900 through a couple more. Last year was lower, again, missing 2 games there, but he also missed 2 games in 2020 when he played almost 900 snaps. He had a crazy workload on him this season.
He did.
In his age 35 year. It's not a question, I guess, of if Travis Kelce wants to keep playing football, because if he wants to, he obviously can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
He's like weighing the pros and cons and all of that. But just putting him in carbonite for 2.5 weeks and knowing now, hey, maybe he's thinking, I've got 1, 2, or 3 NFL games left for the rest of my life. Or maybe he's thinking 1, 2, 3 games for history. 1, 2, 3 games for another Super Bowl. However he's doing that metric, he's definitely not going to play 4 more games in the next, after mid-February, right? it's all right in front of him. There's a finite amount of football remaining for Travis Kelce, be it this year or for his entire career. But he was playing a borderline infinite amount of football, it felt like, compared to the workload he's had in these recent years. So
And blocking his tail off.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is his best blocking year since 29, 30. And that's where he's been preserving his body. This year, and to a lesser extent last year, he's been preserving his body on yak. He's just like, no, we don't need it. And he'll do what he has to do with it. It's been kind of fun to watch. It's like he's morphed his game to that dude that plays at the local Y that wears shorts that are incredibly short and just barely can run up and down the floor. But anytime you play by ones and twos up to 21, he's got 11 points, 6 assists, about 10 boards. I mean, it's unstoppable. And he just and he's throwing up a couple of oops to the young fellas and giving them the old nod. I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. This was all information that I discovered while I was writing about him as one of the things I'm watching for, because this is when we'll know. Does that switch still flip? I think based on what we saw in the regular season when they absolutely needed it to flip, I think it does. And that is going to be a joy to watch. If I've got a few regrets. Well, I've got plenty of regrets. Anyone that's honest with themselves does. But one regret that I have in terms of football, I wish I had enjoyed Jamal Charles playing more when he played. Because you will never see you'll never see another player like Jamal Charles. You'll never see it. Like Gibbs in Detroit is one of the closest things I've seen. Still not quite there.
He not
with
close.
Kelsey. You're never gonna see anything like Travis Kelce again. And I want so much for him to flip that switch at least one more time. Because when he does, it is him and Mahomes.
Ask Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, him and Mahomes is something that is going to get talked about forever. And we might get to watch Montana to Rice one more time. That's awesome. What a privilege.
And the point I was going to say, or the point I was trying to make, Josh, is does Travis Kelce care about stats? No.
apparently not. Despite having all of them, it seems like he doesn't.
No, not anymore. He's ascended beyond Super Saiyan. He's ascended beyond all pros and Pro Bowls and selling jerseys and statistics and okay, I've broken Tony Gonzalez's record. I've ascended beyond that. I don't need anything else. He and Mahomes are in the same, even though they're obviously different in age, they're in the same mind. Stats don't matter. Winning matters.
Yep.
Tell me when we got to win, we'll go do it.
Yep.
And to Seth's point, if winning is what matters most right now, and he's not worried about anything else, and he's preserved his body as best he can based on the experiences and what he learned last season, he's reached the final stage of Rob Gronkowski a lot later in his career than Rob Gronkowski. I just need to be ready when you tell me it's cold outside and it's 3rd and 7 and it's January, and if I don't catch this ball, we don't go to the Super Bowl. That's where he's at. And I get the sense that he will have multiple moments on Saturday if the opportunity is, ideal. But I just he'll
take 2 if the opportunities aren't there.
Yeah.
If they want to,
right.
If the Texans want to do what the Bills or Ravens, if they make it to the next round, certainly would want to do if the Chiefs make it to the next round and double Kelce, he will happily watch.
He'll point to the
21-year-old.
That's absolutely right. He will stand there, get triple covered, and then point.
And he will point to Worthy, point to Brown, and he will walk up to DeAndre Hopkins afterward and say, "Glad you're here, man." And because you are right, he doesn't. Me talking about those stats, it's not that Kelce cares, nor should he. He's ascended to a completely different level to where none of that matters. He's first ballot Hall of Fame, immediate, no conversation, no matter what. Now it's just for the legacy. Can he do it? Because if he has an incredible playoff run, there's some other records that he's already broken one of Jerry Rice's records.
Correct.
There's others that are within really, really, really gross spitting distance. Like that's quite the That's quite the loogie you hawked, my
Loogie
friend.
Distance, yeah.
Yeah, but he could do it. And so I'm so excited to see him summon that, because there's something special about that, watching players do things that you're just like, how'd you do that? Where did that come from? The whole, the MJ flu game type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put a button on this sucker. We got a football game on Saturday. Let's go ahead and tell people how it's going to go so they can go ahead and not be stressed out throughout it. I'm going to give you a prediction, and I've kind of, if there's like a thing that you want to mention, feel free. We're got to come up with one to talk about in 5 things as well, guys. So you can just percolate on that one. Seth, I think both of you always forget that we do that on KC Sports Network. You can catch it in the same podcast feed you listen to this on. Get everybody's 5 things. Woo! But what I'm going to do is I'm going to predict one thing that has not happened at any point this season, and one thing that happens very, very infrequently. Ooh. I think the Chiefs score 31 points.
Hey!
And I think it's a somewhat comfortable borderline blowout. I'm going 31-13. I think you get a Spagster class. I think you get big games from multiple pass catchers. And maybe it ends up 31-20 on a late Texans touchdown. I don't know. But after week 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 after considering flipping my pick to the Steelers on Christmas, I am at a point now with this team being healthier and with it being the type of January games that do count, unfortunately for Sean Payton, who seems to be a little bit confused about what a win in January means. I think the Chiefs win this one, and I think they look like a good enough team that going in the next week, we are having a Clash of Titans conversation, not the Ravens are getting those beaten down Chiefs. I think the Chiefs take the narrative back in this one. Seth, why don't you go next?
I will, because I'm excited to hear how Nate brings us out.
Yeah.
Nate, I swear to God, if you talk about the 90s, I am going to log off.
At least it was 90s football this time.
That's fair. Yeah, it wasn't like, in 1973, women's tennis was at something of an apex, like.
I can talk about
and I'm
Christy
sure it
Evans.
was. And so,
You
no,
want me to go-
that wasn't
Billie
it.
Jean
Nate,
Key?
let me.
Okay, fine.
You can after Seth's done, and then we'll just leave.
Yeah. I'm gonna start doing the Cesar Chavez dog whisper thing, or Cesar Milan, not Cesar Chavez. That's very different. I'm gonna do the Cesar Milan dog whisper thing to Nate. Shh, shh, shh. See, I am not aggressive. I'm dominant. Shh. Anyway, so what were you talking about? Oh, the Chiefs, Texans. See, look, and I'm part of the problem.
I need 10 of you to have that clip in my mentions in the next 5 minutes.
No, wait. Folks.
Say your takeaways. We've been doing this for an hour and 15 minutes.
What's the score?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nate. Am I bothering you?
Yeah, I think my righteous anger is justified. Nate's is not.
So, you know what, Josh? I love that your head's out there. I'm a little nervous about how good the Texans defense has looked. This is a style of defense that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have seen a lot of. At times they've struggled with it. At times they've blown it completely out of the water. I think 2 things. I do think the Chiefs win. I think they cover. I think they get close to 30, if not 30 or over. And I think we see our first Xavier Worthy down the field, 45-plus yard big play since like week 6 or something. And it's going to be a, oh no, reaction from everyone else on every team, because the whole country wants the Chiefs to lose. And I get it. That's totally fair. Not judging anyone for it. I would too if I didn't like the Chiefs. I want to see that. And I'm speaking it into existence. But I do think it makes so much sense for this to be the game, knowing what's coming up here in the next few weeks if they're able to win. This is the game to do something to give kind of an abandon all hope ye who enter here feeling to the rest of the league. And I think you do see some intentional downfield stuff. So I've got the Chiefs winning, let's say by 10. So let's say 30-20.
Nate, give us your score and get us into a playoff weekend.
Chiefs 30, Texans 23. I do think the Chiefs will score right on the button, right on 30. That 23 might be a backdoor cover to some of you all who gamble. That 23 might be, a little bit more, back and forth. you know, the beauty of the playoffs is there's no better time to watch football. This is the weekend, kids. This is the weekend, which takes me back to a year of our Lord in 1993. You know, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were trying to go for a three-peat themselves and create distance between them and the Larry Bird Celtics and the Magic Johnson Lakers and the Detroit Pistons of the late 80s. And, at one point, I'm sure somebody in 1993 said, hey, if everything goes well, the Cleveland Cavaliers can maybe push the Bills to 6 games, 7 games. Who knows? Maybe if things go a certain direction, maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers will win the series. And I just looked it up, kids. This is before the revelation that Michael Jordan spent a night after Game 1 in New York City, in Atlantic City, doing the thing we call gambling. The Chicago Bulls swept the Cleveland Cavaliers 4-0. So, just again, providing context as to what happens in a three-piece situation, because we've always said this Chiefs team is very similar to the 1993 Bulls.
Love it. Let's go. Let's go. But not too far, Nate, because we still got to do 5 things.
Is there like a famous tennis player you could compare them to instead?